2 Samuel 10. Later the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him. David said, I will express my loyalty to Hanun, son of Nahash, just as his father was loyal to me. So David sent his servants with a message expressing sympathy over his father's death. When David's servants entered the land of the Ammonites officials said to the Lord of Hanun, do you really think David is trying to honor your father by sending these messengers to express his sympathies? No, David has sent his servants to you to get information about the city and to spy on it so he can overthrow it. So Hanun seized David's servants and shaved off half of each one's beard. He cut the lower part of their robes off so that their buttocks was exposed. And then he sent them away. Messengers told David what had happened, so he sent them to the men who were thoroughly humiliated. The king said, stay in Jericho until your beards have grown again. Then you may come back. When the Ammonites realized that David was disgusted with them, they sent and hired 20,000 foot soldiers from Aram, Beth Rehob, and Aram Zobah, in addition to 1,000 men from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 men of Ishtob. When David heard the news, he sent Joab and the entire army to meet them. The Ammonites marched out and were deployed for battle at the entrance of the city gate, while the men of Aram, Zobah, Rehob, Ishtob, and Maacah were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the battle would be fought on two fronts, he chose some of Israel's best men and deployed them against the Arameans. He put his brother Abishai in charge of the rest of the army, and they were deployed against the Ammonites. Joab said, if the Ammonites start to overpower me, you come to my rescue. If the Ammonites start to overpower you, I will come to your rescue. Be strong. Let's fight bravely for the sake of our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what he decides is best. So Joab and his men marched out to do battle with the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites saw that the Arameans fled, they fled before his brother Abishai and went in the city. Joab withdrew from fighting the Ammonites and returned to Jerusalem. When the Arameans realized that they had been defeated by Israel, they consolidated their forces. Then Hadadezer sent for the Arameans from beyond the Euphrates rivers, and they came to Helem. Shobach, the general in command of Hadadezer's army, led them. When David was informed, he gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan, and came to Helem. The Arameans deployed their forces against David and fought with him. The Arameans fled before Israel. David killed 700 Aramean chariots and 40,000 foot soldiers. He also struck down Shobach, the general in command of the army, who died there. When all the kings who were subject to Hadadezer saw they were defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and became Israel's subjects. The Arameans were no longer willing to help the Ammonites. So one of the things that is interesting and is so David has, before being king, been around to some of the foreign countries, hiding away from Saul at times, and made friends among some of the other surrounding countries. One of those was the king of the Ammonites, the king of the Ammonites, whose son is Hanun. David expresses his loyalty to Hanun, son of Nahash. So Nahash is the one he was loyal to. He was loyal to me. So Nahash and David were allies. So David sends servants with messengers of sympathy. A normal thing to do. However, as we will see happens later on, there is a genuine concern that people that are coming are going to spy out the land. We see this later in the downfall of the people that when is it Josiah, or I can't remember which king it is. It's not Josiah, I don't think. Hezekiah, that's who it is. Hezekiah defeats in battle, and then emissaries from Nebuchadnezzar come. He shows them around everything. He shows them all that he has, and then, yes, he comes and gets sacked by them later on. It's like, so there is this genuine fear that you should be cautious about that. However, they misread the loyalty that David is actually showing. They misread the loyalty that's actually being shown there. Anyway, so David sends his servants with expressed sympathy towards his father. The servants over there are like, he's really not doing that. He's just here to spy out the city. And notice it's often the young officials, new officials, that make this wrong estimation of things. So Hanun, who is trying to prove himself and as a new king, seizes David's servants, shaves off half of their beards, and cut the lower part of their robes off to expose their buttocks. So he is shaming them and humiliating them. Shaving off half of their beard is a humiliation thing. So my guess is, like the right half, the left half, it doesn't matter. Shaving off part of their beard, they aren't going to go around in public that way. Exposing their buttocks, also a level of shame. So they don't even return to the king. They don't even return to the city because of the level of shame that has been brought upon them. And this is also then shame to David and to all of Israel because they were emissaries of the king. They were representing the king. And so they're humiliated. They send a messenger to David. So they do not even go. They find a messenger who can go to David and say what has happened. They're told to stay in Jericho until their beards grow back in. So, I mean, it'd be easy enough to cover your buttocks, get a new garment, but your beard, half of it gone, you still need to, wait. So the Ammonites realized that that David was disgusted with them. You think? You put shame on him and his emissaries? You think he's disgusted with you? So you find out that, oops, this was a bad deal. We shouldn't have done this. So they hired 20,000 foot soldiers from Aram Beth Rabo, from Aram Zobah, in addition to 1,000. So you're only taking 1,000 of your own, or men from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 from the men of Ishtob. So we're getting a whole army put together. When David heard the news, he sent Joab and his entire army to meet them. So, David's not the aggressor here. Notice this. David is not the aggressor. David sends his men to show sympathy. They mistreat his men. Even after mistreating his men, David is not going out after them. He is expressing in whatever way his displeasure and disgust for what they did. But it doesn't say he's assembled the army. The King Hanun is the one who assembles the army. Hanun, gracious, some irony in that name. King Gracious is ingrateful. King Gracious is an ingrate. He does not show grace towards the men that come. He does not appreciate and show graciousness. In fact, when David is upset, instead of trying to make amends for the wrong that he does, he assembles an army. So David heard the news. He sent Joab and the entire army to meet them. Okay, why does David not go out himself here? It does not tell us. However, there is some level at which David could be here not engaging himself because he doesn't want to personally go out against the son of his friend. He was, in fact, trying to honor, so this is just a level of meeting force with force. It doesn't necessarily require the king's presence to be able to do it. It doesn't give us the incentive there, but we will see that he does later show up to the battle. So this is not avoiding kingly duty. It doesn't look like anything like that or neglecting what he should do. It's just doing what he is Well, he's just responding in kind to what's happening. So David sends Joab and the entire army to meet the Ammonites. David does not go himself. And I think there's a level of, this was just an insult that was perpetrated. This is an overreaction. The king is not going to respond, possibly, but it doesn't say anything is bad or that David's doing anything wrong. And as we'll see, David will show up later as the battle intensifies. So maybe he was staying in case there was another force that was going to come on Jerusalem. We don't know that part, but here it seems okay that David has not gone because he will show up later. So David hears the news. He sends Joab and the entire army to meet them. The Ammonites marched out and were deployed for battle at the entrance of the city gate, while the men of Aram, Zobah, Rehob, Ishtob, and Maacah were by themselves in the field. So we have two fronts. So Joab saw as the battle is on two fronts. So he chooses Israel's best men and he deploys them against the Arameans, and he put his brother Abishai in charge of the rest. And it's like, okay, if you get overpowered, I'll come to your rescue. If I'm overpowered, you come to my rescue. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that we have a backup. Let's fight bravely for the sake of people and the cities of our God. Yeah, the Lord will do what is good in his eyes. So we're going to go fight on behalf of our people, on behalf of our God, who has been insulted. So Joab and his men march out to do battle, and they fled before him. And the Ammonites saw that the Arameans fled. They fled before his brother Abishai went in the city. So they're fighting. They're outside the city. One group flees. The other group flees to the city. And so they withdraw. So Joab withdrew from fighting the Ammonites and returned to Jerusalem. Why does he return to Jerusalem instead of joining his brother to fight those that are fleeing? Doesn't tell us why. Maybe it's to report this. Maybe it's the battle's over. We don't need to press this all the way to destroying them. They were the ones that assembled against us. We repelled them. We don't need to do more. That could be what's going on there. Hey, good morning, Elaine. When the Arameans realized they'd been defeated by Israel, they consolidated their forces. Then Hadadezer sent for the Arameans from beyond the Euphrates, and they called Helim. Shobach, the general and commander of Hadadezer's army, led them. So the Arameans realized that, hey, our allies have fled. They are gone. So we're going to call for some reinforcements as well to help us. When David was informed, he gathered all Israel and crossed the Jordan. So, see, we also have David not willing to go out to fight. David was not yet going out to fight. So David was informed. He gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan. So we already had all the army went out, but now we're having all the army go out again. See, all doesn't always mean all. It is totality language. This is all that is here. Everyone came. Oh, wait, there's more. Yes, there's more. So he gathered Israel. They crossed the Jordan. They came to Helim. The Arameans deployed their forces against David and fought against him. The Arameans fled before Israel. And now we're going to get David's victory. So 700 charioteers, 40,000 foot soldiers. He struck down Shobach, the general commander, who died. When the king, who was subject to Hadadezer, saw they were defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and became their subjects. So the subjects of Hadadezer see that they've lost. So the Arameans come and they become subjects of Israel, and they're no longer willing to help the Ammonites. So the Ammonites had a leader die. David is trying to show sympathy for the leader that died because he was an ally, and it turns into this battle because they think that David has not good motives. And then David puts that down. So